Wishard paramedics and EMTs face a tough job on the streets of Indianapolis. Tonight, I ride along in a special behind-the-scenes look, Lives on the Line, on News 8 at 6 o'clock.
Live from Wish TV, this is News 8, your 24-hour news station.
Well, in the few minutes that you have been watching this newscast, an ambulance has been dispatched to aid someone who's in distress.
That's right, Mike. From horrific accidents to mundane runs to a doctor's office, Wishard's crew of 200 finds itself in the center of all sorts of emergencies in all kinds of conditions. Photographer Ken Lavenberg and I spent the better part of a week with Wishard paramedics, checking out firsthand what it's like when lives are on the line.
Engine 31, engine 22, engine 23, medic 14.
Two small children trapped inside this burning home on Birdsell Parkway. Firefighters plunge through the smoke and flames. In some cases, they even plunge to the frozen ground to try and save a life.
Get out of the way!
You warm enough?
Every run, every person, any time of the day or night is an emergency for Wishard ambulance crews. This is their story.
I work with Tracy Zeiger.
Just a couple of months coming out.
She's an EMT. We work 12-hour shifts together.
Okay, she did a couple more things real quick.
My partner Doug and I have had at least 9 to 10 runs a day. We average, if not more.
But there's nothing average about a paramedic's job. After a serious multi-car crash shut down I-70 near the airport, it was paramedics on the scene helping the seriously injured.
They moved him over into the helicopter, got the patient in there, and they are now transporting them back into the hospital.
On any given day, there are 18 Wishard ambulances on the streets of Indianapolis. They make over 65,000 runs a year, and believe it or not, that's over 1 million miles. And everything starts as an emergency.
Medic 14, 3333 North Meridian Street.
The one patient I think about is a motorcycle crash on the interstate. We cut the neck with our scalpel and then cut the trachea. That's probably been the most invasive and drastic thing I've ever had to do. We've treated patients who have been in cardiac arrest. They smashed their finger in a door, or some patients, with back pain.
Medic 14, 3333 North Meridian of Midtown, back pain at 1124. Medic 14, back pain.
That was the chief complaint for this man, Robert Young, Jr. But in the back of the Wishard ambulance, it became apparent he had other problems as well.
Schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, I'm coming out of it.
Most patients, if you ask them the right questions, they'll lead you into the story that they want to tell you. Robert's story was that he had back pain. It sounds to me like it was an old injury. A lot of times we are people's primary care physicians on the street. That's what they believe we are.
Now, Wishard has had an ambulance service for 115 years. The service started when there was a smallpox outbreak in this city. Tomorrow, we'll take a closer look at what goes on in those rolling miniature emergency rooms. In fact, we'll go live inside one during the 6 o'clock news. That's tomorrow. Back to you, Mike.
All right, Debbie, thanks.
Well, despite that, there are everyday heroes roaming the streets of Indianapolis. You may see glimpses of them on the news, but the jobs they do are vital. They are Wishard paramedics and emergency medical technicians. There are close to 200 of them in the Indianapolis area. They work in two-person crews and respond to every medical emergency. Now, tonight, you'll see how one man benefited from a crew's quick response. We'll ride along as Henry Williams is treated for a slow heart rate.
the number of vehicles you have. It's not the number of runs you make. It's how every individual treats every other individual on a one-to-one basis every day.
I'll bring you my special report tonight at 6 o'clock.
Any time of the day or night for any kind of emergency, Wishard ambulance crews are called to duty. Whether it's a crash or a cold, it's their job to respond. I'm Debby Knox. Their story coming up at 6 o'clock.
Plus, I'll take you live inside a Wishard ambulance in a special report looking into crews who take care of the ill and injured.
You're watching Wish TV, your 24-hour news station. Now, Mike Ahern, Debby Knox, meteorologist Angela Buckman, and sports with Will Hampton. News 8 at 6 continues.
Any time of the day or night for any kind of emergency, Wishard ambulance crews are called to duty. Whether it's a crash or a cold, it's their job to respond. And when a call goes out anywhere in the city, an ambulance is needed, that crew has 8 minutes to get there. When they reach their location, they get a little more time for treatment, exactly 10 minutes.
That's right, Mike. Those are called protocols. This is a business of seconds and minutes. And in just a moment, I'll take you live inside one of those rolling emergency rooms. But first, in part 2 of Lives on the Line, the streets and the people Wishard ambulance crews face every day.
Medic 14, 11 Byram Avenue on chest pains at 1218.
Wishard ambulances are big and loud. But that doesn't make them immune from disaster like Medic 5. A routine run ended with this EMT on the gurney instead of pushing it. Traffic is a natural hazard of the job.
It's paying attention to everybody else. It's a very defensive driving mode that you have to put yourself in. You have to make sure that you stop at every stop sign and stop light, at least slow down until you know every car around you is stopped, making sure that everyone else knows that you were there.
Engine 22, Medic 14, the dialysis center for a sick person.
It does take a certain kind of person to do this job.
We're going to take a good look at your heart.
We look for an individual who can think on their feet. We look for someone who can work autonomously. We look at somebody that is good for people.
This is oxygen. This is going in your nose.
Tracy's partner, Doug, has been a paramedic for 4 years. This day, he and Tracy are treating 79-year-old Henry Williams. Williams has a potentially life-threatening problem, low blood pressure and a slow heart rate.
Need to speak to a physician at St. Vincent's for med orders, please. This is Medic 14. I've already given him 1 milligram of atropine, and I just wanted to see if some more atropine would work for him. This gentleman we picked up at the dialysis center was weak, and a lot of dialysis patients have complications with their electrolytes and their fluid imbalances and things like that.
Each patient is different, each run unique.
He felt a little unsteady and wasn't able to get back up by himself. We wanted him to make sure that he made his dialysis appointment to get that completed.
And then there's the case of a woman named Henry Sherrills.
It's right in front of you, about 1.5 feet now.
This blind lady, her complaint actually was just feeling weak, but she was, had no other way of getting herself to the hospital unless we were to take her.
Sometimes our ride-ins, the best patient care we can give them is just to hold their hand and tell them that, we're going to get you to a facility that can help you and will take care of you.
And we are live right now outside the Channel 8 studios. I want to show you one of these ambulances live. These are about 8 feet wide. We were going to try to get into the studios. It's just too big. I'm going to knock on the door. I know that our crews are in here. This is Doug and Tracy, and they have helped me with this story. Now, guys, I know you've got about 35 square feet inside this area. Is that right? I know you've got IV drips and all sorts of scalpels, anything you might need. But how many people can you actually take in an ambulance?
A lot of times it depends on the severity of the patient, but I've had 5 patients in one ambulance at a time.
And that's about what you have to do in an emergency, I'm sure. What amazes me is it is 16 degrees right now. It's cold, and you guys, I've always worked with you, and you wear sweatshirts. What is going on with just sweatshirts?
Well, we try to spend as little time outside in the cold as possible, so this helps us stay kind of a mediocre temperature for getting out and then getting back into the warm ambulance, and that helps get our patient out of the cold if we kind of think
we need to hustle out of the cold too.
Yeah, so it's less cumbersome. You don't get overheated, and you've got layers. I know you told me about that earlier. You want layers. They don't want to have big bulky coats, although they wear them. And in fact, I got to wear one when I was out with you guys. Well, this is an incredible bunch of folks. They work very hard. It's a 12-hour shift, and I know you're on this weekend, right? So stay warm, and thanks for being with us. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, Debbie, thanks.